Come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us shout for joy to the rock of our salvation. Please be seated. I'd like to give you a heads up that I'd like to do hymn 304 at the end of the sermon in the hymnal. And I'll tell you why it's important to me in a minute. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is so awesome. This is a super extroverted thing for Episcopalians to be doing. Normally, we may not be as shy as Lutherans, right? The people in the back row back there are Lutherans. May not be as shy as Lutherans, but you know, it's pretty extroverted. So it's really great to be here with you, and we're so lucky with the weather, so blessed with the weather. So when a preacher is preparing to preach, there are several things that come into play. First of all, what are the lessons of the day? It's a little secret that preachers know, but you might not know, that the lessons don't always help. You know, sometimes they go together, sometimes they don't. We have lessons that are assigned to us, and sometimes, you know, there's really nothing there. You don't see anything there. Sometimes, on other times, the lesson may be particularly wonderful. Maybe it's one of our favorite gospel lessons. This lesson that we have today about the gates of Hades is one of my favorites, but I'm not going to talk about it today. Another thing that's important to look for in the lessons is if there's something particularly problematic or troublesome. Lessons that Jennifer preached last week about a woman that Jesus kind of put down and rejected. And so we have to wrestle with that. You know, you can't just read this outrageous stuff, especially lessons that are things like about slavery or women or divorce, right? So there are things that we hear, and if it's going to be something that hits the heart in a difficult way, the preacher has a moral obligation to address it, is my thinking. I think that preaching, we've all heard sermons where the preacher felt like it was their job to just kind of stand up on high and show you how smart they are, but I don't find that particularly helpful. I think that the best preaching is pastoral care. We have to be aware of that it's a conversation. It's not just like imparting wisdom. I don't have any more wisdom than you do, but it's a conversation. And so preaching is meant to address what's happening in the moment. Maybe there's been something in the news, you know, that needs to be addressed. So that's another pastoral care opportunity. Which brings me to what we're doing today. As a newcomer to the cathedral, I don't know the story or the background behind the hymn sing, so all I can really do is talk to you about what it means to me to be here and doing this today. Music and singing are, bar none, my favorite thing in the world. I grew up listening to music. As I've mentioned before, my dad was a very avid music listener. And so the making of music and the listening to music are very important to me, very meaningful. Singing hymns in a worship setting is very meaningful. I grew up an Episcopalian, and we did, you know, a fair amount of singing, although in a kind of an introverted sort of way, but we've done a lot of singing. So some of these hymns are embedded deep in my pre-memory, you know. As an aside, when the Episcopal Church began revising the Book of Common Prayer in the 70s, it didn't shake me up a bit. What do I care? You know, it's fine. But when they started messing with the hymnal, I got really crabby. Like, oh my God. In fact, there were some, you probably know this better than I. There's a hymn about the saints of God. I sing a song of the saints of God that was left out because the committee deemed that it wasn't theologically sophisticated enough. And people hit the roof, right? And so it's back in the hymnal. 293, you can notice that, yeah, it's back in the hymnal. So I know that a lot of the ministry of this cathedral takes place here on these steps. So here we are out on the steps. At the intersection, it's kind of like a giant Venn diagram. We're kind of at the intersection of the church and the world, and I think that's lovely. It's like we're overlapping. So with all that background in mind, I want to talk a little bit about music today. You may have heard the expression, the person who sings prays twice. Have you heard that? Do this. Carol Jean wants me to do this. It's better. I'm not sure where that came from. The person who sings prays twice. I've seen it attributed to Augustine. I've seen it attributed to Martin Luther. My husband said to me on the phone this morning, I thought it was Bach. So it doesn't really matter, right? The person who sings prays twice. Prayer, this feels really true to me. Prayer and words of praise are particularly beneficial when they're sung. Poetry and lyrics, the word on the page, are great, but when words are set to music, something happens. When we sing, we use all of our senses, not just the brain and the intellect. Again, as a lifelong Episcopalian, one of the things I really learned well was how to think my way through it, right? Up in here. But when you sing, you think about it from the heart. You feel it with your whole body. Singing requires our whole body, our posture and our breath, right? Both our physical form and our heart. Singing creates a resonance. It creates vibrations in our body that are good for us. I don't know if you're into, chakras, but I kind of think, singing tunes our chakras. I think it sort of tunes us up. And when sound moves through us, it aligns us, kind of like a spiritual chiropractic alignment, right? It sort of lines us up. Singing lifts our spirits and our hearts, whether we think we're being religious or not. It has nothing to do with religion. I'm not talking, despite what we're doing here, I'm not really only talking about hymns. When I retired last year from parish ministry, I bought myself a guitar. The guitar I'd been playing for 40 years was a really heavy mahogany guitar, highly polished, super polished, and it's an auditorium guitar, so it's meant to project sound out. And because I'm becoming an old lady, I didn't want to carry it around anymore. So I bought myself a new guitar, which is smaller, but the most amazing thing about this new guitar is that its finish is not heavily polished. It's kind of a matte finish, okay? So the sound comes here. I feel it right here when I play it. Right, Sean, when you play a guitar, one of the benefits, when people don't know it, is that you feel it right here. And that's a marvelous thing. It's a wonderful gift to a guitar player. Music vibrates and resonates through our bodies. Those who sing pray twice. Research from Johns Hopkins says, few things stimulate the brain the way music does. If you want to keep your brain engaged through the aging process, listening to or playing music is a great tool. Research has shown that listening to music, this is what I really wanted to say, can reduce anxiety, blood pressure, and pain, as well as improve sleep quality, mood, mental alertness, and memory. Now, I don't know everybody here, but I suspect that each of you can relate to at least one of those things. I'm going to read this list again. Reduce anxiety, blood pressure, and pain, as well as improving sleep quality, mood, mental alertness, and memory. In the Nautilus News this week, our newsletter, Louise reminded us to bring ourselves, our spirits, and our voices to sing at church. She invites us to make a holy sound. Music is so important to me personally as a human individual, but it's also very important in a community. It's important with the body, the whole body. Absolutely vital for communities, and especially for people of faith. You know Garrison Keillor? You're Minnesotan. Garrison Keillor says, many Episcopalians are bred from childhood to sing in harmony. And he says, when we're singing in the key of C and you slide into an A7th or D7th, all of you together, it's an emotionally fulfilling experience. We're doing it together. And as an alto, I can't always hit the high notes, but I do love the alto part on some of our hymns. So singing together builds community. It makes us one to sing together. So I'd like to offer a spiritual prescription. Someone's singing. It's an angel. It's an angel. So I'm a trained professional, so I'm writing you a prescription First of all, remember to sing. It's good for you. Even when you're just walking along or maybe lying down or trying to go to sleep, singing is good for you. Sing along when you hear music out in the world. This place out here has a lot of music going on all the time. And even if you don't know what's being played, you know, I like to stand in front of speakers sometimes and kind of feel the vibrations. Listening to recorded music can be a blessing. I myself find a lot of wisdom and depth in a lot of so-called secular music. I mentioned to Louise this week that Jackson Brown is my personal favorite theologian. And I had a long conversation with our facilities manager, Jim, this week. I had a long conversation with him about songs about trains. Finally, sing with other people if you can. When you sing at church, be aware of what it is you're doing. Singing binds us together. Now, I haven't done this research myself, and you know, of course, this is, you know how reliable the internet is. But I read something that said that the word sing appears in the Bible 400 times or more, and about 50% of that is a command. Like our psalm, we said the psalm, sing to the Lord. It's a command, an imperative. So I would like to sing, if it's okay, and maybe, I don't know, it's got 5 verses, maybe we don't sing all of them, but for sure I want to sing the last one of hymn 304 in the hymnal 1982. I definitely want to sing the last verse. So I want to, the reason I want to do this is because this hymn contains what I think is the theology of what we're doing when we're together. And especially, we sing this a lot as a communion hymn, but the verse I want you particularly to pay attention to is, together met, together bound, we'll go our separate ways. And as his people in the world, we'll live and speak his praise. So we come together and we become one, and then we go back out. May it be so. At 1, what did you say, 1, 4, and 5? 1, 2, and 5. Perfect.